Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining this our climate conversation under the stars. And as we are celebrating International Dark Sky Week, and we have our special guest speaker, Durlabh Ashok. He is well known, I would say, not only in Pakistan but on international forums as well, for his climate activism globally and working on specifically on climate change. Um, I would like to hand over to Durlabh to tell us more about himself. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Durlabh, for joining this call.
yeah, it's my pleasure, Rayan, and thank you again for your invitation. I think the theme of this conversation, I think they are a very important one. So a quick brief introduction, I would say about myself. So my name is Durlabh Ashok, as you have introduced. So I am a climate activist slash advocate. That's how I like to sort of introduce myself. Interestingly, my background is in technology. Like I've studied computer science. I'm a software engineer by profession. But my journey started back in 2016, 2017. And this was the time when Karachi, the hometown that I belong to, right, uh, there was this heat waves, right, and a lot of people died. So this was sort of like the back of my mind when I started my journey, and that is how I sort of connected a couple of things as I slowly started my activism and then slowly transitioned um, to being an advocate. That's where I'm at in my journey. So,
Can you tell us a little bit more about what inspired you to involve in this? As you mentioned that the heat wave was
yeah,
actually
yeah.
the game changer for this whole situation specifically. Um, is it the only thing, or is there any other motivation that brings you uh, more passionate about this topic? Anything that you think is more convincing to make people um, convinced specifically on climate activism? Because a lot of people are still not aware on these topics and still not convinced actually that it is affecting Pakistan somehow. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so let me like go back and just like share the story, right? And that's how I like to tell this as well. And I've told this multiple times that in 2016 I was in Germany. I was attending a fellowship, and a friend called me up, and he was like, "Dulab, I've been working with the U.S. State Department here in Karachi, and the project that he was working with on the State Department, right? It was on fisheries, how we can make the fisheries, because Karachi is a coastal city, right, more equitable and sustainable in terms of fishing practices, and there was certain other aspect to it, right? And he said a lot of this has to do with tech. So he knew me from a tech background, obviously, and he called me up and said, Dulab, I need you. When are you coming back to Karachi, right? And this was back in roughly October, November 2016. So pretty late 2016, right? And I told him and informed him that I will be back in Karachi by February of next year, right? And this is how I got to know about the Sustainable Development Goals. So this was still 2017, and the goals were relatively new, right? In 2015, they were adopted, but in Pakistan,
Yes.
pretty much no one knew about what the SDGs were, the Sustainable Development Goals that the UN had adopted a couple of years back. So this was sort of my introduction to the goals, right? And there were these menu right in front of me, like, okay, if I want to work in education, then there's a goal for education. Poverty is there, water and sanitation is there, right? So all of this was quite new to me, because again, this was not something that I learned in my school, universities,
Yes.
etc., right? And it talked to me, right? And it said, okay, these are the goals that 190 plus countries have agreed on, and these are the targets. It was quite simple process for me, and just to for me personally, it was like, okay, if I need to work on certain these are targets, why don't I work on this, right? And from the start, this connected to the heat waves that I talked about, right? Because in 2014, 2015, there were this heat waves, a lot of people died. In fact, I think you can also comment on this and remember this, that so many people died that the places where the dead bodies were kept, they were full, and there were no places left for the dead bodies to keep to store, right? So things got this bad, and no one had predicted that this was coming, and no one knew even what was
Yeah.
happening around, right? And later, of course, we connected the dots, and it became quite apparent that it was because of climate change. And that's how sort of I started my journey in to this. And people, especially in the beginning, I would say people were very perplexed that, like, why are you doing this development work or activism, for example, right? And they were like, you are a software engineer, and that's how people knew me
Yes,
in
that's
Karachi, right? And
yes.
it was quite, I would say, to them it didn't make any sense, and they were like, "You have gone mad." There were a couple of our friends again. They were like, "Why are you doing this and X, Y, Z things and questions like this?" So yeah.
I think the rebellious you became, the more powerful you are. Sometimes, and most of the cases, specifically when you are mentioning about your journey, it quite resembled my with my activities as well. As I was not really aware about light pollution, and I was working. My previous background is from aircraft maintenance engineering, and later I moved into this dark sky advocacy, working on astronomy education and light pollution, and it was quite challenging for me as well. And I think that this is very important. When you see there is a space for you to bring new ideas, you definitely need to focus on those ideas and work on them, specifically in Pakistan, because a lot of people are not really actively working on certain things that they see it might not work, or they see it's going beyond their understanding or beyond their limitations. Sometimes they feel they are limited to certain um, try like social circle that we have, those who limit us. Anyhow, so I would like to ask you, uh, how do you think that how we can bring this topic of light pollution and dark sky advocacy in Pakistan, specifically when you talk about climate activism or advocacy? It's not really well integrated in this at this time, because it's also quite new in Pakistan to talk about light pollution, where you see from international perspective, and you must have seen it, these climate conferences for international or global forums are now integrating and addressing this topic specifically about light pollution as well. So how do you think, what are the basic steps that we need to take to involve those advocates and experts on board? Specifically, we need some experts from lighting design, and not only this, expert from astronomy, and also a lot of, because it's a very interdisciplinary topic. So how do you think that how we can involve all these collective efforts and collaborate with people around? Yes.
Right. So I think personally that, to me, climate change or climate action, it comes down to what was before and how things are going and looking moving forward in future, right? So it's looking back, right? So as a civilization, right, one of the greatest discovery or invention that we had was fire, right? Because again, it changed the entire trajectory and sort of like led us into this industrial revolution, right? In 1600s, 1700s, that the entire modern world has sort of like built its foundation upon. Um, so when we look at from this context, right, in climate change and climate action, biodiversity is a very important concept, right? So
Yes.
what that exactly mean is that if you have, for example, a place, let's call it, if it's a forest or if it's like it's not like a very dense forest, but it's sort of like a land that was there. But now you have created these buildings, or you come in and you
Yes.
have created these structures around, right? And there was this native flora and fauna. If we're not talking about birds, there were plants, right? For example, there were
Yes.
there were a vegetation there, and then of course there were animals in there as well, right? So this biodiversity, because of us human coming in, got disrupted, right? So this
Yes.
is the direct impact of the cities that we have built, right? They were not here 2000, 3000 years before, right? This is again, we created this And in the grand scheme of things, 2000, 3000 is very little time when we look at the history of the earth as well, right?
Yes,
And over there, as modern biology has taught us that for human beings as well as animals to adopt, it takes a couple of thousands of years, right? So what we have done is we have introduced this pollution. And by the way, one thing when growing up, right, and this was pretty common in our textbook, then we talked about pollution, right? There was sound pollution, there was air pollution, there was light pollution, but the light pollution was not too much taught in detail, right? They were like, okay, in water
yes,
you introduce foreign element, so it pollutes the water. But then in same goes for air and land, not to litter, for example, right? But light, it was,
that's
oh
true.
yeah, there shouldn't be too much light, and like again, not going into too much depth. And this is how I connected this
That's
entire element, interesting element to it, right? And also looking and looking at closely what the human beings have adopted themselves into as well, right? Again, the prelude that I gave was with the fire, then industrial revolution, and this is the point to that, right? Right now we are so much surrounded by light that it's affecting our health. And this was the point that I think you were getting towards when you said that the conferences, for example, I think COP28 that happened last year, right, in Dubai, this is a big topic that was being discussed because of the health element to it, right? And this has been proven, like too much exposure to light, right? Because we have this inbuilt clock, this rhythm, right, in
yeah,
human beings, that we need certain hours of darkness, or if not complete darkness, but dimmed environment, right? And if you are not
that's
getting that on a longer period, it will start to affect your health. And what will start to happen, your immune system will also get compromised because of this, right? Because when you sleep and when you have a deep sleep, for example, right, all of the functions that the body normally does not able to perform, it performs when you're resting, right? So this all gets disrupted and ultimately results in the health element that I just spoke on, and people suffer because of that.
that's very well, like very impactful when you talk about light pollution. That how light pollution is affecting us is actually one of the important point that we need to address, because other than this, if we only the astronomers talk about that it's because of sky glow you cannot see the stars. It's
Yeah.
not the right way to advocate, I think, because this was the missing element for past couple of years. And now after the research that was done by the researchers, and we figured out that it causes anxiety, depression, and all these mental health issues that we have in this world right now is connected to the light pollution, and exposure of rich blue white light is actually one of the important point. So definitely it's important for us to bring this idea and collectively connect all those dots that we can work with. Specifically, you pointed out biodiversity. I was looking into this research and some newspapers that in Karachi specifically, there were some bats, were the big bats specifically. They migrated from the city to the what place near Mali. There's a place, and they're disturbing the neighborhood, and it was in the news, and I was just wondering that we might not have a clear picture about this. Maybe it is because of the light pollution, because they need darkness, and they are, because the Malay side is quite dark when you see compare with the DHA and the other areas of Karachi. And I think it has some uh, missing elements that I was noticing and thinking about that we don't talk about, because light is not only affecting us, the migratory birds, like also the nocturnal birds like bats, and also the biodiversity like fireflies and all. Yes. So I would like to ask one interesting question regarding the because when you talk about climate activism and as a like one important thing which I've found, that we may not have enough lighting solution, sustainable lighting solution yet in the cities. what do you think that how we can involve the municipalities, the government, the authorities, the stakeholders on this topic? Because we might do some awareness and outreach, but when it comes to the real uh, uh, like hands on or practical work which is going to give us the fruitful result, what do you think, and how we can engage these stakeholders on this topic, specifically when you talk about sustainable lighting solution for the cities? Because it is one of the key and important role when you talk about this. And we will talk about the dark sky as well, because we have a lot of dark sky spots in Pakistan, and how we can protect with the solution, with this conversation on the climate activism. So please, you may suggest some ideas. Maybe we can brainstorm together and we can see what we can do on this. Yes.
Right. Again, I think that's an amazing question, Rayan, because I think the first step has to about sensitizing them, because you see the pollutions, right? For example, just yesterday or day before yesterday, there was this report that says that Lahore is the worst air polluted city in the world, right? So that was, again, these were the
Yeah.
numbers, and again, and there were these this has been ongoing, this report, IQ Air, for example, they have been publishing it for the last few years, right? And also, I think with light pollution, this gets a bit tricky because it's not quite apparent in a short period of time, right? For example, if you are exposed to, let's say, fumes from, let's say, I visited Lahore 2 years back, for example, right, on the peak of when there was the smog and everything, right? So I
Yes.
could feel the irritation, right? If I step outside from my hotel, for example, right, I could feel that there was something in the air. Same goes for water pollution, for example, right? If I drink something that is polluted, right, first it will affect the taste. It might not taste natural, and then if I continue to, for example, drink it even in a relatively small quantity, let's say I ingest something 100 milliliters, that was polluted water, right? If
Yes.
not instantly, I will get a reaction from my body in 10, 15, 30, an hour, 2 hour. But with light pollution, what essentially I feel happens is that there are no immediate symptoms, right? It might appear, but it will take more time than these traditional pollutions that we are quite aware of, and I would say actively uh, uh, adopt measures that we can safeguard from us, right? For example, I know plenty of people, if they are going out, they wear a mask. And same goes for water, right? If they know they have been traveling somewhere, they will take the water bottle with them so
Yes.
that they don't have to drink the water that is available at that place, right? So people are already taking that measures, but I think the change of perspective has to be in terms of health. I think that's the biggest convincing factor, at least to me, when it comes to the light pollution and the associated risk factors with it. So yeah, I think that direction might be the best. I would say,
But
if we need,
y-
yeah.
yes, that's goes for the personal or the human health. But when you talk about the municipalities, we need to bring some ideas, and I think the energy wastage maybe is also the important thing. That there is a report on uh, Dark Sky International Dark Sky Association website that only 1% of the light is useful, and the rest is a wastage that we create through this street lighting that we have in the cities. So I think because the most specifically in Karachi, the problem of electricity, short of electricity and load shedding and all these, if we address not only by increasing the rush hour timing, because people might stop using their lights and electricity during these rush hours. But if we aware or create this advocacy on this topic to engage municipality, that it's a wastage that we create every night, and that's that can reduce the wastage and give more electric supply, or have less load shedding in the city. I think that can also play an interesting or impactful part. Whereas I try to engage, yes, I try to engage some of the stakeholders on this topic, where so they they were not really convinced with the idea of help connecting with municipality, because they said, it might need, you need to segregate and come up with the right part and right thing to address to them. I think, and bring more. I think that we need to bring more people on board to brainstorm and see what we can do for this topic specifically. What are your goals, and what do you think that how you integrate light pollution in your climate activism in future or right now, and how do you think and how it goes further in your advocacy for now?
Right.
Yeah,
No, no, of course. I think you are correct, Ryan, because in terms of the province of Sindh, right, where the Karachi is the capital, right. For example, if we look at
yeah,
from the provincial matters, right, of course they are going to prefer something in terms of local stakeholders, for example, or the authorities that be that what are the immediate benefits to them, right? This is unfortunate
yes,
how this region, and I would say, in fact, the other parts of the country, not just singling out sin for this, right? Obviously, but again, I have engaged with other stakeholders, as you can probably tell, multiple times, and they obviously for them it's about the election cycle, but at the same time, what makes sense to them as well, right? I think that is where
yes,
the bottleneck seems to be. So you have, and this is because I have done this, right?
yes,
Especially in the federal level, because I worked with the Standing Committee on Climate Change in the PTI government, and again, these were ministers, right? That we were sort of providing our expert opinions to. And what thing that I learned over there is not to come it from a climate activist or an advocate perspective, but try to get into their mind what will make much sense to them, and try to sort of like
yes,
work the reverse psychology to that so that the
exactly.
point gets across as well, and try to hit the nail on its head, and take that conversation forward. But at the same time, Ryan, I would tell you this, that in the journey that I have been for the last 7, 8, 9 years approximately, right, in Pakistan, we really haven't talked about the efficiency of the power that we are using, right? What does that exactly mean? For example, let's say in our home, let's start from our home first, right?
Yes,
So let's say if one unit of electricity, when it enters a home, and while it sort of like takes a part to reach our appliances, how much that electricity is lost
yeah,
because of the wiring that we have used in inefficient manner. And then once it gets to that appliances that we have just powered on, and we just push the button because it's the most easiest thing to do, and how that unit of energy, however much it may be left, will that translate into the meaningful work that the appliance will do? This is again science,
I think,
a little bit going into
yes,
nitty gritty science
very
elements as well.
beautifully explained, and I would say it's a beautiful storytelling for a general public to talk about this topic when you talk about conservation, and also it is connected to the topic of light pollution as well. I think that creates a beautiful story about the light, the energy wastage that we are doing with all these. I think
Yeah.
there is a
And
storytelling
now,
needed.
yeah,
Yes,
now you scale up to the entire city of Karachi. How much, we're not talking about theft at the moment.
oh
How
yes,
much of the electricity is wasted? Then you sort of like scale it up to the entire national grid that we have, right? Pakistan, unfortunately, we have the worst performing national grid in terms of efficiency
mm,
within the region, and not comparing it to the European Union or the US or the Japan's or China of the world, but within our region as well. We are wasting quite much energy in terms of how much energy is produced at the power plants. So be it again coal, one of the dirtiest fluid, but this is a reality. If we are producing it through nuclear, if we are producing it through burning oil, or if we are producing it through hydropower, right? These are like the three common generation mix, 3 or 4 common generation mix that the Pakistan is generating most of its electricity from. So once it gets produced, and the journey it takes, a lot of this is lost because of this inefficiencies in the system. Then, in fact, a lot of the world have a efficiency scales, right? For example, it's quite common if you buy a TV. For example, if you buy it, you will see an energy rating on the TV. that was very, very common when we were going through the TV, for example, and this was very true for the CRT ones because they were bulky and they
Yes.
used to take a lot of energy. So for them, it made sense. But now with LCDs and LEDs, that has gone down because of the energy usage and how they are essentially different than the CRT ones. But what
Yeah.
about the other appliances, right? And including the lights too, right? And the saving that we can get, again, coming to your earlier question and connecting it to that as well. So the majority of, I think, when it comes to the light pollution and how we can go and save that part when we're talking about stakeholders, it comes down to at least to Pakistan right now in the situation that we are in with the financial crunch that we are in. And 80% of, for example, the federal government budget is going to go toward loan refinancing, right? 80% of the entire budget is just going to pay off the loans that we have
Yeah.
previously taken, right? That leaves us with 20%. I think when we have this conversation from this perspective, that how we can increase that pie, that 20% pie, even it's going to be 22%, let's say, if we do all these measures, and in next 5 years we can increase that pie from 20% to 22%. I think in terms of stakeholder conversation, it will make much more sense. As you also
Yeah.
validly explained, that health perspective, probably stakeholders might not get to immediately, right? But the health perspective, I personally feel that when we're
Definitely.
talking to individuals, they would be the first to pick that up rather than saying, oh, you might save 20 rupees, for example, on your on your bill, or 200 rupees on your bill, right? Because 200 versus health, I think they will pick health first each and every time of the way. But it also comes down to knowing your audience and who you are speaking to as well. So yeah.
That's true. I think there are so many narratives that we have on light pollution itself that we need to bring more storytelling for a general public to understand this topic. Like one is that you have beautifully explained the perspective of energy wastage that we have, and the other one is a health perspective for individual people who are involved in this advocacy to take part where it comes to your personal health. Everybody gets on board so well. And other than this, when you were talking about uh, this important point that we do not have enough budget for all this ideas to work on, but I feel as a proactive advocate for the dark sky protection, when you see the global map of light pollution, Pakistan has a lot of dark sky places that can become a reserve or a dark sky parks and places to promote dark sky tourism or astrotourism in Pakistan. We have a lot of adventure tourism. When you go to northern areas of Pakistan, there are a lot of no, a lot of adventure tourism, but dark sky tourism is not there yet, whereas our neighboring countries are promoting some of their ideas on dark sky advocacy through dark sky tourism. And I think that can also be the option for economical growth and development in Pakistan and promoting ecotourism. What do you say on this, and how we can bring those stakeholders to bring this idea on and collectively work on this to to be more efficient and to be more, I would say, fruitful outcomes to this topic. Yes.
Right. So I think over the last 6 5 6 years, right, what has happened, especially in the tourism sector, right? Because if we go down 10 years before, right, and this is something that I have seen firsthand, right, that a lot of emphasis was placed on bringing tourism into Pakistan. Because again, it's quite true when it's said that we have one of the best gift when it comes to tourism, especially the northern areas of Pakistan, right? The beauty that you find yourself there, they can easily compete with what you can find in Switzerland, what you can find in Austria, for example, right? Germany, the Alps, for example, that region, and again, similar regions across the world, right? So I think that groundwork has, at least they have started talk. But I think one thing when it comes to connecting it with making sure that we are also talking about light pollution and how we can create a structure, right? I think one of the best thing to do is because of the access it will provide to the tourism people that is doing that businesses, right? I think rather than this being a government-led initiative, I think if government can take a step back and allow private players to come in, I think we might have a much more impact when
Yeah.
compared to what the government can do within the same resources, right? I think that should be a strategy for the government, but also looking at it from a different perspective, right? Because of my interest in science, right? I'm pretty sure you must be aware of there's this society called KAS, right? Karachi Astronomical
Yes.
Society,
Yes.
and they occasionally and almost every month, if not the other month, they visit this mud volcano in Balochistan, right? And they have been doing for many years now. So
That's
these
true.
kind of initiatives, they're already happening without the government intervention, without anyone saying, "Oh,
But
go there." And
yes, sorry for interrupting you on
yeah,
this point. I found that in their work recently, when they visited this fort where they used to go, um, there are artificial lights now. Some of the, and they cannot stop um, anybody because we do not have any policy on this. So how we can create a policy to bring, yes, it become a touristic spot for that fort that they used to go, or mud volcano, or some places. Right now they're targeting volcano because it's not very accessible with the local car. You need to go by 4x4, or you need to have your private vehicles. That's why they're going further more away from the city and targeting that area. But at the same time, what do you think? Slowly, yes, when you promote these kind of astrotourism activities in Pakistan, and you see there is a potential, some other person come up with the artificial light, and you cannot stop anybody over there. This is the problem because I'm connected with them, and they shared this message in our last conversation where they were talking about. So how do you think that this can be addressed, and what people that we need to involve in these kind of activities where somebody is doing something eco-friendly activity and promoting tourism and creating economical benefits for the country, but these stakeholders are still need to be involved, I feel. What do you think, and how we can indulge them in this kind of activism? Yeah, because now it's topic getting more convincing and more easy for us to see the right person and right people to get on board and do some powerful outcome, I would say, at some point.
right. So I think one of the steps that you've already spelled it out for anyone that sees this is that you of course have to engage some stakeholders, some governments, right? For example, you have to if you're talking about policy, right? Uh, we can't create policy. Unfortunately, that's the reality of it, right? And in fact, even if the policy exists, what has happened is that at times it's not being enforced, right?
Yeah.
So that is another challenge, right? If you are able to convince for example, let's say the authorities, right, and they feel like okay, that makes sense to them, and they're interested to help you out. But then the second tier starts to show its head, right? That how do you enforce that thing, right? Because I think in Pakistan and in the region, I would say that is probably true for the entire world. Uh, Electricity, or I would say light, is associated with safety as well, right? So
Yeah.
it's that mindset that is very hard to, I would say, readdress, because it has been true for many years, for many thousands of hundreds of years, right? That
Yeah.
in past, that if you see a street that is not well lit, this feeling you will get from your within that probably I should not be on this street and I should take a better lit street, right? If there were two streets in front of you, you will take a better lit
Yes.
street, even though it might be longer. It will take you longer to reach your destination, but you will okay, at least I can see what's around me. So I think that this is an inherent human, I would say, behavior to make sure that wherever he or she may be, he wants to see what's happening around, and it's the natural urge to lit everything up, right? So that again, there's no monsters under your bed, right? That's the human nature, right? Growing up, it was like, okay, because that's the darkest place within your room. There's no light essentially there, right? So again, I
Yeah.
think that's the very human thing to do. But at the same time, we already have a lot of natural national parks
Yes.
within Pakistan, right?
Yes.
And people have been making excursions over there. And I would agree with you that there has to be a policy when it comes to, okay, how do we deal with the lights outside, right? Because when the area is declared as national park, it's not declared so that humans can enjoy that natural beauty. It's the primary beneficial of that declaration is the wildlife, the
Exactly.
biodiversity in that region, right? So that's the primary thing why you declare something a natural, um, for example, park or something, right? It's
Yeah.
not for us, right? That is again a thinking I
I
think
think,
that needs to be shifted.
yes, I think we need to address this topic specifically to all the national parks to make it dark sky friendly first. That can be a good way to start. And then we can reach out to the private authorities and private sectors to bring more ideas to promote astrotourism or dark sky tourism to be more eco-friendly in that region. I think that can be doable, and is uh, that is the way that we can look into. Other than this, lighting design and all these things are, yes, definitely it's quite challenging, and storytelling, bring more narratives, more ideas, more people on board. I think that is very important. Thank you so much for your time, and I had a pleasure time to learn more from you, specifically when you talk about the climate activism and bringing more people. Because right now I see people are taking some interest in this topic. Thank you once again. Have a nice day. Hope to see you soon. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you, Ryan. Take care. It's a pleasure. Bye.